Hopefully this works. Let's see. I get the chat here. Let's see. Hopefully the audio is working on this. All right, today I'm just finishing up my series that I'm doing for Man's World magazine, where I'm painting various abstractions of muscular figures. Bronze Age Pervert used to do this. I think some people are still doing it. This series called, was it Handsome Thursday? And I'm basically doing an homage to Bronze Age perverts. I have this really convoluted theory cell essay I'm going to also accompany this online gallery that I'm doing for the series. Let me see if I'd have to get up and show you examples, but no, I think we're pretty. Let's get started. I hope this is just going to be a quick one. I just felt like I'm just finishing up this series, so I might as well go live. So, wait, let me actually show you the palette. So here I'm rocking a super basic Mars Black, of course titanium white, ultramarine blue, red oxide, and Indian yellow, which is the good mid-tone yellow, which I use for everything. I usually use alizarin crimson permanent, but just the subject matter requires me to use an oxide. So, can you hear me, by the way, Bongo? Is my audio good? Yeah, let's fucking go. I was in a death metal band. Few people know this. So, by the way, this particular muscular picture is from a more well-known person on Twitter. I'm not going to say. Oh, what the hell? It's David Reboy. What am I talking about? So, I'm just switching around the brushes here. I usually go from mid-tone to dark. So, I'm just going to maybe put a super basic flesh tone. For the beginning, I'll start with usually glazing medium. Or, actually, you know what? In the beginning, I'll use gloss medium varnish. I use this for everything. Isolation coat, blending medium. This stuff is really the workhorse medium. But I use it just to thin out painting, because here's a tip for acrylic painters out there. Do not thin with excessive water in the beginning. Always thin with medium. Always thin with medium. I can't stress this enough. It just will help the paint film. And the beauty of gloss medium varnish is that you can use this instead of gesso. Like, say if you had a piece of wood that you wanted to paint on that you sealed. This is good for, instead of clear gesso, you could use this. So say if you screw up, which I've done sometimes, and you put the isolation coat before you use the solvent varnish, you can paint over this and everything's fine. So that's always a good tip. Always know what you're using as a painter. That's just generally a good practice. So I think I'm going to start with a super basic orange tone. Maybe, actually no, a little bit. I'll start with a cool, just in those areas that I know I could put more darks on. So here we go. It's actually hard to I have to look past the camera. It's not fun, but I do it for you. I'm just gonna probably ignore this section for now. So what I do is I usually just focus on the muscle grouping, and I just have abstract backgrounds that I don't particularly mess around with. But if anyone wants to ask me questions, you can go ahead. There's been some recent controversies that I probably won't get into, but I'm loving how on Twitter recently, everyone's shredding No Opinion, Noah Smith. He's such a ghoul. He's such a bug man. It's incredible. Like, I had this tweet years ago where I talked about how the majority of journalism is just basically people that were bullied in school, like enacting their nerd fantasies. And I've been proven right again, because he basically admits that he was bullied in school by Chads, by Giga Chad rednecks. And now he wants to enact revenge on people by creating a hellish neoliberal nightmare fucking system where the experts are going to basically right his wrongs. It's really indicative of like just the depravity of like our elites. You know what? I'm just gonna go to the darks. I'm just gonna start off with a very warm dark, and I think like, see, the further you get away from the veins. So, for example, there's a lot of like vascular grouping, not just in the biceps, but also underneath here. And plus, it's being shaded by the bicep. So, generally, you always tend to keep those areas warm in terms of shadows. And the further you get more into the body, especially where the light will hit, then I'll probably like do cool shadows over here. And the head is different. Like, I mean, there's painters that like autistically obsess over like, oh, this grouping and this muscle, and I think like I'm actually probably going to switch up mediums to be a bit more abstract. I'll probably be using this modeling paste later on. Our professor checking in. Really enjoy you and Orange channel. Thank you, Grind Face. Thank you. Grind Face. Yeah, I mean, I contemplated going into art history, but I don't know. By that time, I was so burnt out with like doing my politics MA and my philosophy that it's just. I mean, maybe one day. Who knows? What am I talking about? One day they'll never accept me. I think I'm just gonna blast this with texture, to tell you the truth. I'm really just gonna go for it. Even, you know what? I may even just use the palette knife too. Where's that really thin one I have? Now, usually when it comes to landscapes, you don't want to just like go ahead and blast the whole thing with texture. That's just kind of cheap and kitschy. But for this type of abstraction, yeah, a lot of theory bros end up getting into art late in life. Yeah, I got into art when I was in high school. Well, I mean, it was always there. It was just that I never took it seriously till I think after high school. Basically, my first year of uni. So usually when it comes to abstract works, I tend to, I'd like that Grind Face. Maybe Break the Rules is sort of like really stuck, but I want to get into interviewing people more on my YouTube channel itself. So if you have a Twitter, shout me out on Twitter. Send me a message. I'll try to get back, although I'm terrible with message requests. Actually, you know what? I am just going to use the palette knife. What the hell am I doing? So you don't want to blast it with texture, but because I'm doing a series of abstract works where I'm sort of relating to, in a aesthetic manner, what the experience is of someone who is creating, making their body a work of art, if that makes sense. I mean, I do have my qualms with like the cult of bodybuilding. I think that like it can become an obsession and it can sort of be a detriment. But I do feel that, I mean, if someone's going to be obsessed about something, might as well be something that is raw and powerful. And, it's like I had threads about this. I myself, I'm starting a little bit to get into weightlifting. Not a lot. Like I lift cinder blocks. Because, being an Italian in construction, I think like you have to find a medium in everything. But at the same time, it's just, it is something to see, like, whether, I mean, of course, whether it's natural or not, that's always a debate, but it is something to see when someone has put their heart and soul into something, into the perfection of their body in a way. It is quite a sight to behold. But like all things in terms of art and philosophy, and used to be science, but I shudder to think if there's any visionary scientists left. They probably all work for Peter Thiel, apparently. So I think that was a joke, by the way. I think that when it comes to the obsession over the body, that's obviously a bad thing. But when you do it with a mindset of either functionally wanting to be strong, or if you're doing it as a sort of weird aesthetic pose, there's always going to be detriments to it. There's always going to be a passion that can consume you, something that could almost destroy you in a lot of ways. There has been bodybuilders that have been destroyed from it. I mean, Ronnie Coleman comes to mind. I just think that now that they're going after the bodybuilders, it's quite interesting how they're making that connection for us. Like, if you become a bodybuilder, that means you're a fascist. It's like, that's kind of, that's saying the quiet part out loud a little bit. Is this just fat cope? No, it's not fat cope. I think that some people take it too far. But I'm just saying that on an aesthetic level, I do think that people who are able to do those those heights of making their body into a sculpture, I think that there's something more than just like quote unquote body dysmorphia. I think it truly is sort of, Yukio Mishima pursuit of excellence. So there's a lot of bodybuilders who die young from bad steroid cycles. Yes, that's very true. That's a lot of pro wrestlers, especially as well. Even that, like when you're trying to chase something that could potentially destroy you. So I think like the shirt I'm just going to do like super thin and abstract, even just like a wash. I like how like certain works, it's like, it's kind of the rusticity of like he's fading out of the picture, and I think like that, to me, I appreciate that a bit more, instead of like, it's almost like I want to get like the strands. Yeah, my judging people's physique is totally different. Favorite Canadian wrestler? Oh God, I can't pick one. I want to, like, if it was before, I would say maybe like a cross between, like the old school ones, I'd say Tony Parisi, but I don't know, probably like Chris Jericho is up there just because of his technicality. I do think that what Chris Jericho managed to do is something else. Do I sell my art anyways? I'm working on a website to sell my art, but if you do want something, then just DM me on Twitter. I'm so lazy about this seller's website I got approved for. It's this Canadian thing. It's called Digital Main Street. And you still have to pay for your domain and everything. It's not that much of a break. But no, favorite Canadian wrestler. Bret the Hitman Hart will always be iconic. The Rougeaus, of course, one of the best tag teams in the world for the time. It's hard to pick. I would say I would say Chris Benoit, obviously. Benoit, like, apart from the memes, Chris Benoit has always been a favorite of mine. Even, like, I think his best work is obviously, and I know this is like a total hipster opinion, his best work was when he was Wild Pegasus in New Japan. I think, like, that was some of the stuff that he was doing at the time nobody else was doing. But no, nowadays, I don't know, I'm hard pressed to find a good Canadian wrestler. I mean, it's so unfortunate that, like, Lance Storm, he's got very, like, yeah, Roddy Piper is technically Canadian, that's right. It's hard that, like, Lance Storm is such a bug man on Twitter. Like, he's got this typical, like, Canadian lib opinions on things that's kind of like, it's not good. But Lance Storm, I do appreciate how he managed to, with like the radicals, he did manage to like bring that sort of more technical cruiserweight division wrestling to the forefront. What did Kevin Nash call them? Vanilla midgets. Even though Kevin Nash is actually quite a he's such a like larper. He's got these like basic like normie lib opinions, and it's like so cringe. It's like, bro, like you're trying to be cool. It's just not gonna work. Like, don't, you know. It's a lot of wrestling now. Like, I hate to say it, the Bugmen have invaded wrestling. They're it's over. It's over for us, bros. It's just unfortunate. I think like anything that had like the sources of raw masculinity, whether like even in a nerdish sort of way, like whether it was like metal or wrestling or I mean comics. I was never into comics, but like, you know, video games, they're always going to be like prime targets for the nerdocracy, the nerdwazi. They're always going to be targets. And nowadays, like much like metal music, a lot of wrestling is just colonized by like. If you don't believe me, then like look at any like AEW show and like intensely focus on the crowd, and you'll know what I mean right away. It's not pretty, bros. I hate to say it's over for us right-wing wrestling bros. I hate to say it. It'll never be over. You'll always have Japan. You'll always have Mexico. Thoughts on today's wrestling? Are you aligned with Jim Cornette? No, I am not aligned with Jim Cornette. Certain things I do agree with him on. There are certain things I do agree with Jim Cornette on, but when it comes to the whole, I can't divorce his politics, his like obnoxious boomer liberal. Like I probably can. When it comes to just wrestling, I do have several disagreements with him. When I was younger, I just grew up with deathmatch wrestling. I think I've even wrote essays about how deathmatch is a legitimate art form, believe it or not. I know it's like cringe, whatever, but I think his approach, like he is kind of right about certain things. Like for example, he is right about AEW. Yeah, it's been definitely a left-leaning audience post 2001. That's very true. I think when they got rid of the wrestling, when they destroyed WCW, I think that's when it turned into what we have now, which is this like hideous sort of like cultural pastiche, to quote Frederick Jameson. It really is a pastiche of its former self, because the audience itself used to be made up predominantly of like working class men of all sorts that used to like really get into it. But then even like Jim Cornette said this, ironically enough, he's like, as soon as you got rid of the wrestling, then people that actually like really real wrestling, you know, they sort of went away, and they were like, well, now it's a kids show. It's like Disney. It's like, why would I want to watch this, right? So that's the problem. I think like in some ways it's actually funny how like people accuse WWE of being like reactionary now, because AEW is just so soy that by comparison, WWE is like, you know, has some like vagrants of like some like distant scent of like what it was. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just think that when it comes to the technical side, I do appreciate a lot of like because when I grew up watching, I grew up downloading a lot of CZW videos. I do appreciate like the lucha style mixed with the death match, mixed with different stuff. But they just take it, like if they were to calm it down a little bit, if they were to actually have people telling them what it means to develop a good wrestling match, I think that there is hope for AEW. But they're just like, the people in charge are just too far gone. Like, I mean, that's the problem with having a money mark that's like, you know, making decisions, and like people are having in his ear and everything. Like, it's just, they just try to signal too hard, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, Cody was the closest to wrestling I thought it got. He literally takes 90% of your off, so AEW, hard to take. Yeah, AEW, like, the thing is, I know, like, as much as I think he's a meme, as much as I'm ashamed to admit that I used to love him, I think, like, Kenny Omega has really, like, shit the bed. I think, like, if they were to have someone to guide him more the way that Guido and Okada did, I think like AEW has a chance to sort of, you know, be a bit better. Like in the beginning, I do appreciate how they like restrained him a bit, but now they just like shot him to the moon to where he's like, the Impact champion. Like, who fucking cares about Impact, right? Like, he's like the Triple A. Is he still the Triple A champion? I don't even know. Like, it's just like it's really strange how Kenny Omega like managed to bank on his popularity that was like literally created by other people, but as soon as like you put him alone and you get him like enough clout to like where he's organizing everything, he's calling the matches, it's like he needs someone to tell him like, bro, you have to like you have to like build things up. You can't just blast everything, finish move, V-trigger. Yeah, that Dominion show was pretty great. I watched it live. Not live like I was there, but I watched it like on the New Japan World. Yeah, I think like the shocking truth for like wrestling purists out there is that, yeah, like the vast majority of stuff was probably like Guido like restraining Kenny Omega and be like, no, you can't do this, Yeah, I mean, Okada, like, unfortunately, he's not as exciting. I hate to say it. I do like that Shingo is the champion because I think Shingo, not only does he deserve it, but he has a presence of, despite his size, he has a presence to him. And he's like a much needed throwback that New Japan, like, the thing is, you can't really, if you were to pick a champion that was more similar to an AEW wrestler with like he has like an impressive moveset and all that, I think like unfortunately New Japan, they would sort of like be going back on their laurels a bit. So Shingo is a much needed throwback. He serves his purpose quite well. They gave it to Robbie Eagles, but I did like that he's one of my favorites in AEW, not AEW. He's one of my favorites in New Japan. Not Shingo. Well, he is one of my favorites. They gave the title to El Desperado, and his development has just been phenomenal. Like, every time El Desperado goes in the ring, he's not like a traditional quote-unquote cruiserweight, So every match feels like a fight. It feels like he's fighting for his life, his opponent is fighting for their lives, and just like his ability to sell pain is phenomenal. Like, the way he screams, like... that's stuff that people in AEW, they don't understand. They don't understand, like, you can't receive a Topican Halo to the outside and, like, get up for, the count, right? Like, you have to, like, you have to romance it a bit. And unfortunately, like, the people in AEW, they just don't know how to do that. I mean, maybe they're getting these new guys and maybe it'll be different, but I just think that, like, wrestling is not in a good state. Metal music is not in a good state. Nothing is in a good state. But we march on, though. We march on. Oh, God. No, I wanted to maybe talk about drama on Twitter, but no, this is better. I appreciate when people ask me about wrestling instead of, like, what's your latest hot take? I don't know. I just, so... This series, I hope I'm going to start writing for it. I want to show Raw Nationalist what I got so far. I think I'm going to have 10 or 11 paintings in this series. Best wrestling documentary. Even though it exposed the business. No, actually, I was going to say Behind the Mat, because I watched that when I was a kid. But no, the best wrestling documentary, even though it's not a documentary, like, per se, it kind of is, but it isn't, is Watch the Trade by Sick Nick Mondo. He is, like, one of my favorite wrestlers because when I was a kid, like I said, I was addicted to Combat Zone Wrestling. And his documentary, it's kind of like, it's like an indie film as a documentary about his time in wrestling. It's really quality. It's great. He goes into like the mindset of like why people do deathmatch wrestling, and I highly recommend it. It's just phenomenal the way that he has managed to like evolve into a cinematographer. He directed the John Moxley shorts right before he debuted in New Japan, and he like beat the hell out of Juice Robinson. He directed those like film, and he directed his entrance music, his Titantron entrance. So yeah, The Trade by Sick Nick Mondo. I think you can find it on Amazon Video. Of course, like people torrent, but just to support him, I would go to Amazon Video. Nick Mondo, he really was. People don't know this. He was a visionary. He was one of the first. He took the legacy of Hayabusa in terms of being a deathmatch wrestler that was a true hybrid wrestler, and he just ran with it. He could be a high flyer, a luchador. He had some of the best death matches you've ever seen. Of course, like the most infamous being the Tournament of Death 2, where he did the fall with John Zandig. Just like really high quality. I desperately wish he would have stayed in wrestling, just to like maybe transition a bit more out of the death matches and to do like pure wrestling, because he does have matches with people like CM Punk before he went to WWE. And he's really great. I'm not a big fan of CM Punk, by the way. I don't know. People, I kind of missed the boat. I just think, like, again, maybe it's the problem. I can't, like, divorce his personal opinions from, like, his work. I just think his work is derivative. I think, like, if you want to watch a good CM Punk match, go and watch a Kenta match. That's my opinion. I know that's such... that's terrible, but it's true. Hey, it's the truth. So, yeah, this is actually coming along. I just have to... unite certain things here. Oh boy. I'm just going to, when I'm doing a live stream, like my palette tends to be a mess. So, yeah. Okay. Oh boy. Oh, let's see here. Hot take. Yeah, I know, hot take. Self-portrait. I don't believe in self-portraits, but I mean, maybe one day. I think like people that have like done a lot of self-portraits, it's like, yeah, it's, thank you, Mimetic Park. I have this other stream where I was doing the Killdozer, the live stream where I was like doing my wood engraving of the Killdozer, which I will release soon. The prints didn't come out as exactly the way I wanted. They were darker than I wanted, but they're still pretty good. I mean, this painting. Yeah, thank you. It's just, I'm trying to, yeah, I want to expand more. Like, when I get my new computer in September, I'm obviously going to be doing more streams. I'll have like my good webcam and everything. Actually, I have to make that a bit warm. Did you see Chris Carroll's Logo to Atlas? No, I didn't see that. Charles Carroll like engaged with Logo on Twitter. That's wow. I can't lie. Like, I can't hate Logo. I mean, Logo, I'll always find hilarious. I think like he's got a like, he truly does have a mind to him. He truly does have his own personality, and I really can't fault him. Like, I mean, he's like, despite all of his like sus contrarian takes, I can't lie. I gotta stand Logo. I mean, he gets annoying sometimes, but you gotta know how to deal with Logo. Like, Landshark is the best guy to deal with Logo, because like, you can't really take everything he says seriously. Sometimes you just gotta let him be. You gotta let him, have his moment. Yeah. But I wanted to talk about the no opinion tweet that everyone was shredding today. I think like it's very true, like what I said years ago, that a lot of journalism is basically just justifying the fact that you were bullied as a kid in school. I think that's like really like that's not even a hot take. That's just like the truth. Like it really is quite satanic in a lot of ways. The fact that you want to like go out there and like you project an image onto the world that has sort of it's the ultimate like nerd revenge fantasy that was very popular to like a lot of these like something awful like Gen X journalists that like watched like Revenge of the Nerd and all those like 80s like nerd films. You are a little nerd. I mean, hey, I'm a nerd too, bro. I'm not like a nerd. I'm not a nerd. I'm just fat. That's my problem. I'm not like a nerd per se. Like, I don't have a lot of like nerdish interests. Like, I'm not into, because like a nerd used to mean something entirely different like generations ago. It used to mean someone that was obsessed like almost on an autistic level about certain things. But now the nerd is a shorthand for the alpha consumer, really. The nerdnoisie is just consumption. It has no mind to it. And the best example is I would never like subject myself to this, but if you were to watch anything by like bread tubers like Thought Slime, it's really transparent that they've just consumed their way through life. And I think, like, I know it's a meme, I know like it's kind of played out to call these people bug men and all that, but I think that the nerdnoisie so heavily relies on the ability for people to desensitize themselves through consumption. Theories tell not a nerd, someone tell him. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. I guess like if you were going from an older definition of nerd as someone who is obsessed with like a niche, then I think, you know what I'm going to do to Reboy? I'm just going to like, look at this. Okay, ready? There you go. Oh, there you go. I'm going to have probably a different background. I think, you know what, let me just, there you go. Let's see how that works. There you go. I wanted to like recarve it, but I think I'm just going to, yeah, let's just, there you go. I don't really want to, I think I'm just going to get rid of his shirt. So, yeah, the nerd is like, it's a very funny cultural entity how the nerd became like the top of pop culture, the top of everything culture. It's really, like it's a reversal of hierarchy at its base root. It's really like, it's like the theater kid becoming the theater kid now becomes the alpha, the top of the chain. He becomes the school bully. And it's like this crazy inversion of hierarchy. It's like, I think the problem is like the whole, now this is a controversial take right now. Maybe I shouldn't even mention this on YouTube, who knows. But I think like the whole Columbine mythos of like the millennial, what happened with, like the nerd kids get bullied, the trenchcoat mafia. It's like that shaped a lot of millennial thinking around social cliques in school and like this obsession with like, this after school special version of high school and like just the general education experience. I think like that alone really informed like the whole narrative behind Columbine is total BS. I hope people know this, right? Like the whole like they were bullied nerds, like that's not true. In fact, my personal theory, maybe because I wish this was we lived in a better world, is that Dylan Klebold had a chance, but he was just like too far gone because Eric was the manipulative one. And apparently like Eric Harris was also like a school bully. Like he wasn't this like fragile nerd that people made him out to be. Like he bullied all the younger kids. So like this whole narrative that like, oh, the sensitive kids are bullied, like it's really like not the case. It's very much like in the millennial psyche that the whole like bullied nerd gets revenge. That was a holdover from the 1980s. That was like our Gen X like older siblings inflicting their like cultural tropes and pastiches on us. That's all that it was. And now it's like we have to suffer with all of this like nonsense of like the theater kid is now dictating public policy. The theater kid is now the one to be at the top of the school hierarchy. It's really quite sad. It's like it's terrible. I was kind of a nomad in school, to tell you the truth. Like I was friendly with everybody, but I never had like a particular, like I had some people, but I never had like a particular group. I always like sort of, I could hang out with the popular kids, but then also I could like hang out with the nerds or whatever you want to call them. I just think like I couldn't even tell you what it like. If there's any Zoomers in the chat, please inform me how high school is like. I imagine it's like hell on earth now. That I know like it's total void staring. I probably shouldn't mention it, but like that video of like the cat boy in school and the teacher's like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm a sad cat boy today." It's like that to me. That's just total void staring. That's just demoralization that you probably shouldn't take too much out of. But it is true. It must be like something else to be a Zoomer in high school nowadays, or even younger, and to like see all of this happening around you. It's just like. I mean, us millennials, we really started everything. I shouldn't talk as an older like core millennial. We were the ones that really like started the trend downward. You know what I mean? It's not good. I think I'm getting to the point where I'm happy with this painting somewhat. There's just like a few shades and tones. I'm really glad that I could just like cut loose and like do a pure abstract work compared to some of my other stuff. I'm just trying to get like pure oxide on that one bicep. There you go. Maybe a bit over here. I'm just trying to cut loose, bro. So anyways, yeah, the world is being run by nerds. The world is being run by theater kids. I don't know what to do anymore. They're going to dictate public policy for the near future. I mean, the whole like... the recent like Backstreet Boys World Tour, if you know what I mean, the recent Live in China, if you know what I mean. That's again another problem of like when you give nerds ultimate power. That's going to be a problem because they have like I think that's as much as he's contributed a lot and as much as we have to like we should respect him for what he's done. I think like even my criticism of like Moldbug and NRX are similar in that the other day about how like there's no psychology, there's no psychoanalysis in NRX. High school is now like Junji Ito manga without any of the visuals. Oh my god. I have to consult my anime friends on that. I just have to round this corner to his bicep. There you go. I'm just like implying motion here. No, I think like the reason that there is no psychoanalysis in the works of like Moldbug or any sort of like political unconscious is because it's very similar to like how a lot of the existentialists didn't believe in an unconscious. They actually stripped Freud of the unconscious because when you believe in like pure formalism of power, when you sort of have a very like anglicized view of how power operates, that is very much linked to being like a tech nerd and having like a very analytical approach to what the self is in relation to power. I think like that's why you could never like find a true political unconscious in someone like Moldbug or the other neo-reactionaries, maybe in Land, but the unconscious in Land is just rendered asunder by various forces of techno-modernity. When it comes to Moldbug, I think like there's only so much you can do with this template, I think. And it's like, I'm saying this in the nicest way possible. I just think that there are certain limitations to that view of the world. And the fact that he has sort of been disappointing for a lot of people in terms of like his weird like capitulation to power, to me that is, I think, ironically enough, it's like this worship of power at its source, no matter what, irregardless. I think that's my biggest problem, is that you can't like just worship the raw property of power. There has to be something, there has to be a sui generis there that is more meaningful. And if you were to just go about like, well, we have to capitulate because they have ultimate power, I think that's the wrong take, obviously. But I do understand his logic and his reasoning, because to him, he's like, well, what are you going to do about it, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he obviously has more of a developed theory than that. But to me, I just think that there is no metaphysics in NRX. I mean, there is some. but when it comes specifically to like the mold buggy and like Silicon Valley new reaction, I think yeah, salvation through politics is pagan in its root. Yeah, I agree. That is a very good take. That is an amazing take. It is very true. Salvation through politics is purely a pagan endeavor. I think that it's not that there's no political solutions. Like, I believe it's just that political solutions as presented to us now are not good. But the way that Moldbug frames it, I have problems with. I mean, the problem with Moldbug is that he doesn't have an alternative as to when you say that statement, there's no political solutions. What are you going to fill in its... What are you going to do with politics in the wake of its lack of political solutions is the more important problem. And I truly believe as a Christian that salvation through, worldly, eminent, temporal means is not going to get us anywhere. And I think like a lot of people who were very like enamored by NRX, they're starting to come around to that conclusion that when you sort of just worship the raw property of power, it's not going to really do you any good. It's not going to instantiate your values the way that you see it. And it's just, it's unfortunate that, like, I don't know, it's really weird how Moldbug became like the voice of Neo Reaction, because he's very much not in the same vein as a lot of people who are predisposed to these ideas. Like, he's, from his ethnicity, his lack of religious belief, his background, it's just, it's very interesting. It's very weird. I'm not opposed to it. I would love if Moldbug came on Break the Rules, for instance, but I just think that it's very interesting how the online right is sort of desperate to like look for anything at this point. And I don't, I'm starting to see that things are slowly dissolving, unfortunately. I'm seeing like a lot of infighting and a lot of different squabbling, and I just think that the approach that some people have, it's not very good. But that being said, all things shall come to pass. I think I've overworked this painting a little bit, so I'm just going to finish up a few details here and there. I think it's much more that NRX has realized that really there is no political solution, now scrambling for solutions. Yeah, they are scrambling for solutions, unfortunately. It's just that, some of the solutions aren't very good. Let me see, what can I do? Let's take that off. I think I'm just going to try to refine the knuckle there. There we go. There, that's better. Okay. Actually, no, I'm going to have to extend. The key of the original Byzantine is Pejus said, slowly changing the hearts of people, even converting empires eventually. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that's the most sensible approach. I think, like, we're never going to be in a situation as of late where it's like, 1, 2, 3 Imperium. I think, like, you have to think more long-term than that. Not so much going Moldbug is wrong. I'd say the answer is like patchwork. Much more Moldbug is right now what? Yeah, I mean, I guess. I think, like, the problem is when it comes to... There's a lot of, like, discourse in the online right that is conducive to, like, void staring and is not very good for... Like, apart from the obvious, like... have a family, go out and find someone, blah, blah, blah. I think, like, the problem is you're going to come up with the reality that there's a lot of young men in particular who just have been left out by the system. And until you address that question, I think that's why, every, like, there's a lot of, like, discourse about dating and things like that is because, I mean, a lot of us are growing older. It's no longer 2016, right? But also, like, it's like, there has to be something there that's going to motivate you. Because, like, that's what, your obligation as a family man, it really does motivate you to think about the future. But it's just, I don't know what's going to happen. I think that they're going to put the screws in more. And sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm saying abstractions right now, so I probably should cut it short. I'm just going to refine the details a little bit more. But how many do we have? So yeah, thank you for watching my painting stream, one of hopefully many. And I love you all, and God bless and goodbye. And how do I turn this thing off? Okay. All right. No, actually, you know what? As I'm trying to... oh, here we go. And God bless.